Hey you beans, welcome back to another video. So, you played Azul, and now you're bored of it. And now you're back to playing Peggle, or yelling at your kids, or whatever you were doing before this. So I might as well cover the other popular game that's made by Next Moves. Reef. Reef was released in 2018. It is designed by Emerson Matsauchi, who makes a couple of other games, but not published by Next Moves. We're gonna dive right into this game, so you can stop playing Peggle and get out your Reef blowers. So, in Reef, you play as a reef. Coral reef. That's what you are. So you select colors and patterns to grow your underwater foliage and points. You can stack pieces, cash in early, and sabotage other people by picking up cards or patterns that they would want. This game has a lot of similarities to Azul, which is up here in the corner if you haven't seen that review. I imagine you have, or else you wouldn't understand the first 2 minutes of the jokes that I was just making. But, so just a heads up, I'm making a lot of comparisons to Azul. So again, if you haven't checked it out, go check it out right now. So Azul has 5 different colored pieces, and Reef has 4. There it is. These 4. They're different shapes and colors, but they don't mean anything. They're just to differentiate one from another. The shape of the reef doesn't mean anything. The cool thing about this is that instead of building horizontally, you're building vertically as well. So this is the tile for Reef. A lot like Azul, everyone gets their own tile card. And it's just a 4x4 square, and you start out by putting each one of the colors in the center, and you branch out from there based on the patterns that you get. The cards that you play that look like this dictate your move. So you would pick up 2 yellows for playing this card, and when you decide to cash in, or at the end of the game, whichever comes first, you would get 1 point for every purple that you have down. That's how that works. So if you want to pick up a lot of cards, get a lot of resources, build things, you can stack them, and the cool thing is that unlike in Azul, you can reset. So if you have a yellow, you can put a green on it. That's now a stack of 2 greens, because you're always looking from the top down of the reef. One aspect that I like better in Reef is that since you can change what color your stacks are when you look top down, you can cash out early and continue to building on those patterns. You gotta be careful though, because some of the restrictions on these cards for scoring points say that you have to have a stack of 2 or a stack of 3 or more, right, of a specific color for them to count. Just a quick aside, the way that you determine who goes first in Azul, right, which I didn't go over in the last video, was that it's whoever visited Portugal last in your group. Yeah, so this game makes it a lot easier, and that the person who goes first is whichever person has dealt the card with the cool starfish on it. That's it. It's a lot better. I like that way more than deciding who gets to go first, especially in a game like Azul where going first can make or break a round, and that's how a lot of the point deduction system actually works in Azul. But this isn't the Azul review. We already did that. It's also not a game tutorial, so I'm gonna stop talking about the mechanics like that. Reef is usually a little bit longer than Azul, even though the box says it's still 30 to 45 minutes. The game of Reef ends when all of one color is completely gone. So technically it could be quicker than Azul if you're trying to speed it up or end the game early. The difficulty in this game comes from deciding how you're gonna build your reef and what you should be doing during your turn. Back in 2018, Reef was nominated for the Golden Geek Best Family Board Game. And if you check YouTube out, you can see that there are a lot of home video-esque tutorials on this game, starring somebody's very unwilling and unhappy family and their tablecloth covered kitchen table that they're playing the game on. The allure of Reef comes from its extremely unique design, and again, to compare it to Azul, it's actually a language-independent abstract strategy game is what it's defined as. Much like Splendor, which I'm sure that I'll be covering later, and its expansions, there is no text that you need to understand. You don't have to understand English at all to play these games. So if you know someone who's not that into board games, who doesn't like taking a lot of time to read text, who can't read text, whatever, maybe they're a monkey and they can't read, that's fine. Play with your monkey. Play with Pogo. I know everyone's watching Umbrella Academy. You just play with Pogo. Play Azul and Reef and Splendor with Pogo the monkey, because that's about how difficult all these games are. The real, schmeat of the gameplay comes from its really unique design and the things that actually set it apart from Azul in a very nice and refreshing way. Reef usually runs for $40 at most retailers. Again, it's sold out on Next Moves' website. I will mention though, because I actually do have this one, there is an expansion for Reef. and it includes these little fish that you get. And there's 8, I believe, because every single player gets 2 fish. These fish kind of count like Joker tokens, like how I explained in the last video. Joker tokens act as any kind of thing, so if you're building your reef, the fish can move on to that spot and count as any color for when you're scoring. So you can, it's a really nice incentive to cash in early. The only problem is that late game it becomes a lot harder because you can't put any coral pieces on top of fish. You can only move fish on top of coral, and that changes the amount of coral pieces that you have on there. So the reef may not be the right structure if you have a fish in the way, which I think is a really cool dynamic, and it kind of changes up the game. So, how is it? Well, you don't have to be so sophisticated to understand how to play it, and it's advertising as a family game for people that can't read English. Is a really good marketing strategy, and that's why I think Azul did so well. Plus, they're both just really pretty looking games. They're really fun to just stare at. I think the art in them is both impeccable. Difficulty-wise, I'm gonna give it a 1 again. I will mention that it's a little bit harder than Azul because you can cash in your reef tokens at any point, which adds exactly 1 layer of depth to it. So it's whatever Azul is plus 1 layer out of 5. Enjoyment-wise, I would give this game a really solid 6 out of 10. This isn't a game that I would play with my family or my friends that take forever to take their turns. Much like in Azul, you can always look forward to like what your next turn is going to be, but that's not going to make the other person you're playing with or the people that you're playing with move any faster. And all of a sudden you're taking, like 5 minutes in between each turn, and that gets really tiresome really quickly. It's like watching someone try and lay a capsule down in the earlier Mario Party games, or decides what trains they want to take in Ticket to Ride, which I will definitely be covering in a future video. The problem with Reef and Azul is that the only other interaction you have with people is waiting for them to take their turns and seeing what resources they're trying to steal from you. Whereas in Mario Party, it's like, oh, I gotta watch out for that spot now. Like, you have to pay attention actively and like store that in your working memory for what you're looking out for in the future, because that's going to affect your gameplay down the line. Whereas Azul or Reef, it's like, oh, that person just, had a turn where they took the pieces that I wanted, or man, they moved all the factory pieces in the middle and now I can't pick the pieces that I want and I can't complete this bottom row. Or in Reef, it's, I really wanted that pattern and now I can't do that because the other person took it. So it kind of becomes an RNG like shit fest of just pulling cards or pulling tokens and trying to get the right stuff, which is why this game can become a little bit aggravating if you're waiting 5 minutes in between your turn and somebody just picks up the card that you've been waiting for. Oh yeah, and the last comparison is that Azul and Reef both have 4 letters, so there you go, that's the last one. I'm being exceptionally hard on Reef because I want to set a precedent for these reviews, that I have a very high standard for board games, and that I'm extremely picky, and a 6 out of 10 is definitely something that still deserves your time and attention. Like I said, I even bought the expansion. I just want to make sure that like the 9s out of 10s, the 10s out of 10s, any of the lower score ones that I give like really mean something to you, and to trust me when I say that a game is good or bad, or that you should be playing it. This game is fun, and please don't get it twisted, I'm not saying otherwise. I'm looking forward to whatever other expansions they might announce to potentially add layers of depth to this game, or other games that are published by Next Moves, because I currently think that these are the only 2 that they've published in the past 3 years. Do you like the game? Do you want to play it? Do you want to become the next Master Reef? Now, don't get me wrong, I'd still play this with my friends, but just with like a select group, and preferably ones that know how to play already. I assure you the time that you put into it pays off almost immediately, unlike some other games. But the skill ceiling is very low, and it's a good game that benefits people who make quick decisions, because then people will want to play those games with you. Are you interested in picking the next board game review? Click on the link in the description and you can go to my Twitter, where I put up a poll, and it should be pinned right now. It should tell you what video you guys will be voting on next. Enjoy the video, consider subscribing, and check out my other videos. I heard the new Rivals of Aether video is pretty good. Thanks, and I'll see you guys in the next one.